I turned to face Erin, my wife of 5 years, with a firm resolve in my voice. Erin, it's him or me. No middle ground. Erin was seated next to Plato Giannis, my nominal boss. She had been holding his hand until my words interrupted the moment. As she withdrew her hand, a mix of concern and fear flickered across her pretty face. She shook her head, causing her blonde hair to catch the soft glow of the room's lighting. It's just for the weekend. Monday, everything will be back to normal. Can't you have some fun with Elle? Erin pleaded. Elle, whose true name was Ellen Johnson, sat beside me, making persistent attempts to seduce me throughout the evening. With her lustrous dark hair and curves that seemed to defy gravity, she exuded undeniable allure. Rumors swirled about her being a high-end escort. This weekend getaway had been orchestrated by Plato, purportedly to get to know me better. As a published author, my works were now under his corporation's umbrella, a deal finalized about 3 months ago. However, it quickly became apparent that the real purpose of this retreat was for Plato to pursue my wife. In literary circles, I was a mid-list writer known for mysteries and thrillers featuring my protagonist, Rick Rocker. He was a fantasy figure wrapped in a veneer of reality, skilled in everything from solving mysteries to martial arts. Yet, despite moderate success, I was overshadowed by more prominent authors in Plato's stable. Plato's interest in me wasn't about my writing, it was about Erin. Their initial encounter had been at a lavish dinner dance hosted by Plato, where he effortlessly charmed Erin with his smooth moves and suave demeanor. The age gap of 10 years between them didn't deter Plato's pursuit, and Erin seemed captivated by his charisma. As the band took a break, Plato escorted Erin back to our table, acknowledging me with a compliment about her dancing skills. Erin reciprocated with polite gratitude, seamlessly transitioning from Mr. Giannis to Plato. Observing their interaction, I couldn't help but notice Erin's swift transition from formalities to familiarity. When I inquired about her impression of my boss, she responded with enthusiasm, leaving me to wonder how impressed she truly was. We'll see whose wife he hits on next, I remarked, noticing his flirtations with other spouses throughout the evening. That was a month ago, but now, faced with Elle's advances and Erin's apparent compliance, I realized the extent of Plato's manipulative schemes. My name is Donald Lake, and I don't use a pen name. I'm 5 feet 11 inches and weigh 170 pounds, with curly brown hair and blue eyes. At 30 years old, I'm fit and athletic. Erin, my wife, is also quite fit. She's into fencing, a sport requiring skill and coordination. We actually met at a fencing class she was teaching while I was doing research for my character Rick, who was going to have an A-paid battle in my next book. Rick is a swashbuckler, and I always make sure to conduct extensive research before writing about his adventures. It's one of the selling points of my books. Rick doesn't do anything I haven't tried myself. I didn't pursue further education after high school. I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a writer. I wrote stories throughout school, and even had a couple published in obscure literary quarterlies. Despite considering myself a serious writer, I had to find a way to make a living after high school, so I worked as an auto mechanic. It was a decent job, but didn't pay much. Eventually, I started writing thriller stories, and to my surprise, they sold. That's how I got signed by my current publisher after sending them the first Rick Rocker novel. My editor, Sally Baker, and I hit it off immediately, although she's happily married with kids. I met Erin while working on the second Rocker book. She helped me with advice about the sword duel scenes, and soon enough, we found ourselves going on dates and eventually ending up in bed together. We had great chemistry from the start. Erin was running her own music store at the time, thanks to financial support from her family. Fencing was just a hobby for her. We got married when Erin was 23, and I was ecstatic. We had plans to start a family soon, but everything changed when my publisher was sold to Mr. G, or Plato as Erin called him. One day, Erin came home excitedly announcing that Plato had invited us to his island for the weekend. I was taken aback. You mean Mr. G? Why are you telling me this instead of him? Oh, we ran into each other last week and had lunch. Then I showed him around the store. Today he called with the invitation. He says he wants to get to know his writers. I'm sure he'll reach out to you soon, Erin explained. But has he been in touch with you? And how much of you has he been in touch with? I asked, feeling a sense of unease. Aaron paled slightly. Nothing like that has happened, Donnie. You're being paranoid. No, I'm not. Why didn't you mention the lunch and store visit before today? It was last week, right? She looked away, admitting, okay, Donald. He did make advances toward me. I shut him down, but I didn't tell you because I was afraid it might cause trouble. He owns the company. And now you're excited about visiting him on his island. I've heard about that place. How many others will be there? Just us. He has a special friend joining us, and there will be staff, of course. He wants to get to know you better. It seems like this is more about him getting to know you. All of you. Quite touching. I can handle it. I'm sure you can. Please, Donnie, don't decline the invitation. We'll have a good time. Sorry, Aaron. She pouted for the rest of the evening. The next day, I called the head office and requested to speak with Mr. G. He called me back within 15 minutes. Hello, Donald. I'm looking forward to our weekend on the island, he greeted. I'm declining, Mr. G. I don't feel comfortable. My wife seemed to know about this but didn't inform me. She mentioned that you made advances toward her, and she was worried about how I'd react if she told me. She was right. Donald, I appreciate Erin on many levels. She's attractive, but I can keep my distance. She's also an entrepreneur like me. And you're one of my most successful writers. I simply want to get to know both of you better. Sorry, Mr. G. I'm not interested. I'm disappointed, Donald. Please reconsider. I'll keep the weekend open. We ended the call there. About 3 hours later, my agent, Brock Levine, called me. Don, you declined Mr. G's invitation. Why? He inquired. How did you find out, Brock? The VP for sales informed me. He's insistent that you should go. Or else what? They might not promote your new book as much. It would affect your sales. And mine, as we have a percentage. Did he directly threaten that? Not explicitly, but it was implied. This Mr. G plays hardball. I'll let you know, Brock. After ending the call, I sent the final chapters of the new book to Sally with instructions. We had a discussion later on. In the meantime, I conducted thorough research on Plato Giannis and his island. The island was named Hedonismos, Greek for pleasure. As I delved deeper, I discovered numerous stories about sexual escapades there, including references to divorce cases that cited the island as grounds. However, most of these stories were from gossip sources. There were also some photos of Mr. G with women, 2 of whom were married. The whole situation left me feeling uneasy. I brought up a Google Maps image of the island and studied it thoroughly. It was about 2 miles long and 1 mile wide, located off the coast of North Carolina among other islands known for golfing and beach activities. Facing south, it was protected from most adverse weather conditions. The island boasted 2 docks, several buildings including a large house, tennis courts, and even a pool, despite its proximity to great beaches. I downloaded detailed photos and a topographic map of the area. It seemed that reaching the island required a decent boat or a seaplane, neither of which I possessed. However, I knew people who did. Aaron arrived home on time that Friday evening, appearing cheerful. I had prepared a big salad with chicken and white wine for dinner. As we ate, Aaron mentioned, I heard you might be reconsidering the island trip. Surprised, I asked, where did you hear that? Plato mentioned it. He's in New York, and he called us here in Virginia, she replied. He has a place in McLean. How do you know he's in New York? Don't overthink it, Donnie. He mentioned it. He said his plane would pick us up at National if we accept. But we're not accepting, Aaron. My decision hasn't changed. Damn it, Donald Lake, you're so stubborn. Aaron, you can go if you want. I wouldn't enjoy it, worrying about us getting divorced. You'd sleep with him, right? I wouldn't go without you, Dawn. How could you? I mean, anything might happen if I went alone. Would happen. And when you got back, we'd be finished. Donnie, I can't deny I'm attracted to him, but you and I are still great together. I wouldn't risk that. So you say? No trust at all? My trust tank is running low right now, I joked. She laughed, then spilled her wine in the process. We ended up laughing together, which led to some affectionate moments and eventually a trip upstairs. That took up the entire hour, leaving dessert waiting downstairs. As we lay in bed afterward, Erin reassured me I wouldn't risk this for some billionaire. I promise. It struck me that she seemed to assume we would go to the island. Otherwise, what was the risk? Good. It's settled then, I said. She tensed up but remained silent. I asked, why are you so eager for this trip? Give it to me straight, no sales pitch. After a pause, she replied, it sounded exciting. To be with someone so influential. Sorry, I didn't mean with like that. I meant socializing. Erin, I did some research on him. He was born rich. Sure, he made more money, but he had a huge head start. And he pursues women like you. Okay. Well, I still think it could be enjoyable and worthwhile, she said, maintaining her optimism. I mulled it over. We were on the verge of starting a family. If Erin was inclined to stray, now would be the time. And if she was, I'd rather know now than when we had children. I loved her dearly. She was intelligent, vibrant, and undeniably attractive. But above all, she had to be faithful, and now doubts were creeping in. Okay, Erin. We'll go. But hear me out, if you end up with that guy, it's over between us. No going back. Clear? Clear. I understand. I'm just so thrilled we're going, she replied eagerly. That warning was the final one I'd give. Either she proved herself to be a faithful wife, or she didn't. Temptation would be the ultimate test, and only time would reveal the truth. The following day, I accepted the invitation and made contingency plans with a friend in case of emergencies. I also checked the cell phone service on the island, which was available. Nevertheless, I decided to bring a satellite phone as a backup. The small plane from National landed at a nearby airport, where we were greeted by a man named Simon. He drove us to a dock where we boarded a boat with a comfortable cabin and a powerful motor. Another man named Charlie piloted the boat, and after a 40-minute ride, we arrived at the island. Erin and I spent the journey admiring the ocean and the surrounding islands while Simon provided information about the activities available on the island. He was amiable, larger than me, and muscular, with a warm smile and hearty laugh. As we approached the dock on the north side of the island, Erin was standing at the front. Simon remarked, "You don't seem very enthusiastic about the trip, Mr. Lake." "Call me Don. I have my reservations. Have you been working on the island for long?" 6 years, for Mr. G. "Then you must understand why I'm apprehensive." "Why did you come, then? If you're so concerned?" "To see what unfolds." "Are you also Mr. G's bodyguard?" "Yes, in case things turn physical." "He's a big guy. I'm sure he can handle himself." "Indeed. I'm here as backup, just in case. But so far, I haven't been needed. Looking at you, though, perhaps I'll be ready. I have my responsibilities. Are you armed?" "No, just a knife. But they're readily available anywhere." "Are firearms allowed on the island?" "No, they're prohibited." "You should have received that information." "Yes, I didn't put much trust in it. I'm not particularly trusting these days." "No firearms needed. Rest assured, whatever happens, you won't need them." The boat docked, and Simon helped Erin off while I followed suit. Simon seemed slightly unsettled by my cautious demeanor. Together, Erin and I headed toward the large house as Simon had directed. Mr. G greeted us as we approached the front, dressed casually in bathing trunks and a sleeveless shirt. Elle, who was considered one of the most beautiful women in the world, accompanied him. I had done some research on her prior to our visit, learning that her real name was Ellen Johnson from Johnstown. She seemed to act as the island's hostess, along with overseeing several other properties owned by Mr. G. While she had been associated with other prominent men in the past, it appeared that Mr. G now had some sort of exclusive arrangement with her. Mr. G extended his hand for a handshake, while L warmly embraced Aaron. After exchanging greetings, we were led into a spacious room where drinks and a small buffet were available. Despite it being 1 o'clock and having eaten lightly on the plane, we helped ourselves to some refreshments. I opted for sparkling water while Aaron chose wine, and we both sampled from the buffet. Mr. G inquired about my latest book, noting that I was known for being consistently punctual with my submissions. Elle expressed her excitement about the upcoming novel, expressing interest in getting an early preview. Mr. G then turned his attention to Aaron, asking about her music business, to which she replied with a witty remark about its success. As conversation flowed, Mr. G mentioned Marjorie's latest book and my contractual obligations, while Elle praised my sales record. Aaron shared a bit about her store and her family's financial background. Suddenly, Mr. G suggested going for a swim, springing up from his seat and heading for the door. Elle offered to show us to our rooms so we could change into swimsuits if we had them. The three of us headed upstairs, where Elle guided us to a spacious bedroom with a queen-sized bed and an ensuite bathroom. After closing the door, we changed into our swimsuits. I opted for a standard pair of trunks, while Aaron chose a skimpy pink bikini. Teasingly, I remarked, "That's quite the choice. Who are you trying to impress?" Aaron responded, "I just want to look nice. Elle is so stunning." "No more than you, darling," I quipped, although she didn't seem to appreciate my tone. When we returned downstairs, Elle was already waiting in an electric blue bikini, equally revealing as Aaron's. Admiring both of them, we made our way to the beach on the south side of the island, following a wooden walkway. Mr. G was already swimming beyond the breakers. Aaron voiced her hesitation about swimming too far out, and Elle agreed, shivering slightly. Meanwhile, I dived into the surf and swam out to join Mr. G. We matched each other stroke for stroke until he showed signs of fatigue and headed back to shore. As we approached, a wave knocked him over, but I quickly helped him up. "I'm fine," he reassured, shaking off my assistance. As we rejoined the women on the beach, I suggested another swim, prompting Elle to eagerly join me. Aaron declined, and I followed Elle into the surf. She effortlessly navigated the waves like a professional, displaying remarkable swimming prowess. We swam alongside each other for a while, and she even performed a seductive backstroke that caught my attention. Once back on shore, I couldn't help but notice Elle's gaze lingering on my protrusion under my swimsuit. She jokingly remarked about my stamina after our swims, but when she took a step closer, she hesitated, acknowledging the inappropriateness of the situation. "We can't do this here, tempting as it may be," she said before darting away. I caught up with her easily, and we returned to the deck where Aaron and Mr. G were nowhere to be seen. Engaging in conversation, Elle inquired about my writing process, and her intense gaze reignited my arousal. She had a captivating allure that held power over me. I addressed Elle firmly, "Please, lay off. I'm happily married, and I intend to keep it that way. I'd appreciate it if you respect that." Elle chuckled, teasingly, a speechless writer. "How amusing." Ignoring her jest, I redirected the conversation. "Let's check on the others, shall we?" "Does it matter to you?" Elle inquired. "It does. I want to make it clear, Elle. I won't be engaging in anything with you this weekend, regardless of what Aaron decides. If it comes to that, I'll leave, though I'll probably regret saying this." I offered her a smile. She warned me with a smirk, "I'm not easily dissuaded, Donald." With a single stroke of my erection, she left, and I waited a few moments before following her inside. As I made my way upstairs to change, I encountered no one, but I heard the shower running in our room. Upon reaching there, I found Aaron, wrapped in a towel, visibly startled by my presence. "Has Elle gotten to you yet?" she asked. "No. Aaron, please understand. I won't entertain anything with Elle. I hope you'll refrain from any involvement with Mr. G. We've discussed this already." The situation remains the same. What were you two up to while we were swimming? He showed me around the pool, tennis court, and gym downstairs. No funny business, she assured. Good. But sooner or later, he'll make a move on you, and you know it, I remarked. Yeah. And Elle will do the same with you. He has as much chance with me as she does with you, she retorted, giving me a smirk. That's not reassuring. But I won't, and neither should you, I insisted. Or what? Erin challenged. We've already agreed. Nothing's changed, I reiterated. Drinks and snacks at 5. But let's have some fun now, Erin suggested, dropping her towel. Still feeling stirred up by Elle's earlier encounter, I eagerly indulged in passionate intimacy with Erin. Afterward, we noticed the open windows, realizing that we might have been overheard. We're married, after all, Erin shrugged. I glanced outside and spotted Elle nearby, smiling and waving. She then made a suggestive gesture before I hurriedly turned away. Erin noticed my arousal and observed me for a moment before looking out the window herself. She seemed mesmerized by the sight outside. Suddenly, a moan caught her attention, and she turned back to me. Wow, Donnie. If you're not careful, she might just take me instead. You're in trouble. Just because I'm aroused doesn't mean I'll give in, I protested. Erin chuckled. You might want to beg her to back off. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance. I already tried that. It didn't seem to work, I admitted. I think Plato has given her the task. So he can have his way with me. This is all so surreal. But you have to admit, it's keeping you on your toes, Erin remarked. I promise I won't give in, I assured her, still maintaining my erection. Sure. We can keep going every 2 hours. That might do the trick. Maybe, Erin suggested with a smirk. She took hold of me. Mine. Then she turned away to get dressed. We made our way downstairs to the main room, dressed casually. I opted for dock shorts and a collared shirt, while Erin wore a dress and let her hair down, paired with high-heeled sandals. She looked stunning, without a doubt. Mr. G was enjoying a beer as we entered. Hi, Donald, how was your swim with Elle? He greeted. It was great, Mr. G. She's quite the swimmer, I replied. One of her many talents. Call me Plato, he insisted. All right. It's a famous name. I like it, I replied. It belongs to a famous man. My father, God rest his soul, admired him, Plato shared. Elle joined us, also dressed in a dress and heels. Though her attire seemed modest, it accentuated her figure in a way that made Erin perhaps a bit uneasy. I suspected it was all part of the game, Elle outshining Erin to garner attention from Plato. I draped my arm around Erin's shoulders as a subtle display of solidarity. Plato gestured towards the drinks and snacks. Help yourselves. Pretzels are my favorite, he mentioned, munching on one. We engaged in conversation for a while before Elle offered to give me a tour of the place. As we explored, I noticed the impressive gym equipment. Does Plato use this? I inquired. He does weightlifting, Elle confirmed, pointing to a bench with a heavy barbell set up. I decided to test it out, lifting it with ease. Elle observed with interest. He usually does 3 reps, then he rests. She seemed a bit breathless. I lifted the barbell again, doing more reps this time. Everyone has their strengths, I remarked. And you have many. You know my role this weekend? Elle asked. To seduce me so Plato can pursue Erin? I guessed. Yes, it's happened before. I always fulfill my assignment, even if it's not usually enjoyable. But with you, I think it'll be different, she said, flashing a knowing smile. If I were to plead with you, would you stop? I asked earnestly, but she seemed to take it lightly. No, but I'd enjoy seeing you beg, she replied coyly before heading upstairs. I waited until my arousal subsided before joining the others. Plato broke the silence, offering me a drink. Have something, Donald. Beer, perhaps, he suggested. I glanced at the bar, opting for a bottle of Corona. We continued chatting until Simon interrupted, announcing dinner. We entered the dining room, where a buffet-style spread awaited us. It was a casual, serve-yourself setup. Taking our seats at the end of a large table, we engaged in conversation over water, beer, and various dishes. The interruption from Simon eased the tension, leading us into amiable discussions about politics and baseball. Plato rooted for the Yankees, while Aaron and I favored the Orioles and Nationals respectively. Elle, hailing from Johnstown, expressed her allegiance to the Pirates. Simon served tiramisu for dessert, but I opted to skip it, drawing Plato's attention. "No dessert," he remarked. "I'm trying to watch my waistline," I replied. Plato noted, "You have no body fat. I noticed when you swam. Just beer, no water." I explained, as I told my wife, my trust tank is empty. "Can you blame me?" Aaron interjected, "You think they drug you?" "That's absurd, Donald. Don't be like this." Smiling, I pushed the water glass and dessert towards Plato, encouraging him to indulge. His reaction was stern, promptly instructing Simon to clear the table of the untouched items. Elle suggested moving to the patio for music and dancing, met with silence from Aaron and Plato. I offered Elle my arm and escorted her outside. Once on the patio, Elle questioned my skepticism about Plato's actions. "Do you really think he drugged you?" she asked. "I'm not sure. I wouldn't have thought so, but his reaction was telling," I replied. As the music began, I took Erin's arm and led her onto the dance floor. Initially hesitant, she gradually relaxed into the dance, drawing closer to me. Amidst the dance, she whispered, "I love you, Donnie. Always." "I love you too, Erin," I reassured her as we danced. Later, we joined Plato and Elle at a table. When the music resumed, Elle invited me to dance again. This time, I observed Plato dancing with Erin. Elle's presence seemed to cast a spell, drawing me into a trance with her subtle fragrance and curves. However, my focus shifted when I noticed Plato's hands on Erin's backside and her attempt to distance herself. Stepping away from Elle, I approached Erin and Plato, silently observing their interaction. Erin, uncomfortable with Plato's advances, voiced her concern. Plato relented but led her back to the table, leaving me and Elle to return together. Plato expressed disappointment in my refusal to engage with Elle romantically, emphasizing her prowess as a lover. I reiterated my commitment to my wife, declining any such exchange. That's where the line was drawn. I turned to Erin and uttered, "It's either him or me. No middle ground." She withdrew her hand from his, but her eyes pleaded with me as she said, "It's just for the weekend. Monday, everything goes back to normal. Can't you enjoy yourself with Elle?" I gave her a piercing look. "Would you really do this?" "No joking." "Would you? Even if it meant the end for us?" "No. I don't see why it would mean that, but—" "I won't," she replied. Reaching out my hand, she took it. Pulling her close, I kissed her passionately, running my hands along her body. Stepping back, tears welled in my eyes. With a choked voice, I uttered words that tore at my soul. "The fact that you would have gone through with it means it's over between us. We're finished." Turning away, I made my way to the stairs. Her screams echoed behind me, "No, Donnie, N.O." I reached the top, grabbed my packed bag, and slipped out the back fire escape. Dialing a number, I jogged into the darkness, tears streaming down my face amidst the anguished cries below. About 20 minutes later, the sound of a plane filled the air. It landed near the south dock, and Todd Jacobs emerged as the pilot. Walking towards it, I saw Plato and Simon approaching. Plato erupted, "You coward! You don't get to run. You need to stay here and calm your wife down." Charging at me, he was met with a swift shove, sending him tumbling into the water, his shouts of fury trailing behind. Boarding the plane, Todd took off. We headed to a small lake near Dulles where he had a car waiting for me. After paying him, I drove home to Alexandria, the journey shrouded in darkness and solitude. Entering our darkened house, I was met with memories captured in photographs adorning the walls. Overwhelmed, I sank into a chair, staring blankly ahead. Exhausted, I drifted into a troubled sleep. At 8 a.m., the sound of a car outside stirred me. Peering out, I saw Erin stepping out of a rental car, her appearance mirroring my own disarray. As she entered, she looked at me, her voice heavy with remorse. "I've never messed up like this in my entire life. I won't ever again. I can't lose you, Donnie." I shrugged, unable to articulate the depth of my hurt. "Erin, what did you think would happen when you agreed to be with Plato? Did you think I could just overlook that? Because of Elle? I was foolish, Donnie. So foolish. And now? After all this, do you expect us to go back to how things were? To trust each other knowing?" I saw it as a brief diversion. A chance for us both to have extraordinary experiences, Erin admitted. I smiled, though her words stung. "I understand why you thought my time with Elle would be exceptional. But why did you believe Plato would surpass me? He ignited something in me. Being older and powerful, he knew how to captivate me, I suppose. I never thought he'd be better than you, just different," she explained. "So, Erin, how can I trust this won't happen again? There are other men like Plato out there, and he's still in the picture." I voiced my concerns. "I wasn't going to betray you, Donnie. It was all out in the open. I only thought you might agree. But now, after you turned her down, I know you'd never agree," she pleaded. "Yeah, well, I don't know. To me, you're not the woman I met and married." She wouldn't have entertained the idea of being with someone else, I confessed. "Please, Donnie, can we just see what happens? And our sex life was always incredible. We'd both miss that. We can maintain that while you work on trusting me again," she implored, standing up and undressing before me. I couldn't tear my gaze away as she led me upstairs. One thing remained unchanged: our undeniable sexual compatibility. So, I let her come back home. 10 years later, I greeted the kids as they got off the school bus. Jessica was 8, Robert 6, and Ellen, not yet in school, was 3. As a stay-at-home dad and writer, I had some help so I could focus on writing. It took over a year before I trusted Erin enough to stop using contraception. When we did, our sex life skyrocketed. The thought of fathering our children intensified our passion. I fulfilled my contract with my publisher and signed with another. My first book detailed our island adventure, with some creative liberties, of course. It sold exceptionally well, securing a movie deal that included 3 of my earlier works. Plato couldn't protest the semi-true portrayal of him as Socrates without revealing his own misdeeds. Erin now owns 2 successful stores, adding to our income. Before fully accepting her back, she signed a postnuptial agreement, binding us both to fidelity. As the new school year began, a familiar car pulled into our driveway, Ellen's. She greeted the kids warmly, earning the title of Auntie Ellen. Welcomed by our youngest at the door, I poured her favorite drink, knowing Erin would soon return. Her presence in our lives marked a new chapter, but that's a story for another time. End. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.